Deontay Wilder versus Artur Szpilka. For me, Wilder is the naturally more talented of the two. He's taller, he's got much longer arms, he's more explosive, he's just as fast if not faster. He's got a terrific straight right hand, which he can throw and land from distance, which is very powerful. On paper, this should be a routine title defense for Deontay Wilder. But, and yes, there is a but, my concern is Deontay Wilder's mentality, his mindset. There are some fighters who are naturally very relaxed, and they actually need to be G'd up, motivated. You need to light a fire underneath them to get them going, or else they'll go into the ring far too lackadaisical and end up getting themselves into a very tough fight or beat. A good example of this would be Lennox Lewis. He would often fall asleep in the changing rooms before fights. And being relaxed in boxing is a good thing, but you can't be too relaxed. There needs to be a bit of edge there. But Lewis was often too relaxed in training, where he was contemptuous of many of his opponents. And we saw guys, for example, like Frank Bruno give him a tough time. Lewis was very contemptuous of Frank Bruno in the run up to that fight. He thought it would be a 1 or 2 round blowout. And he ended up having a very tough fight. And then obviously, more famously, his first fights with Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman. He was very contemptuous of those opponents, particularly the first fight with Rahman. Wasn't in the kind of shape he was supposed to be in. Didn't arrive in South Africa early enough to acclimatize to the altitude. None of that. He was over in America filming Ocean's 11 with Vladimir Klitschko. So he was one of those kind of guys who you needed to motivate him. And in fact, Emmanuel Stewart talked about this. He said he would always try and put fear in Lennox Lewis because he knew that Lewis was one of those kind of guys who, if he didn't fear his opponent, if there wasn't an element of danger in his mind, you often wouldn't get the best out of him. Well, Deontay Wilder is almost the exact opposite of that. Wilder is the kind of guy, not in terms of the danger element, but in terms of Wilder is not a relaxed character. Wilder is an extremely excitable, hyper character. He's the kind of character who you need to calm him down. You don't need to light a fire under Deontay Wilder. That's how you'll get him beat. You need to calm him down because he's naturally very animated. He's naturally very excitable. He's the kind of guy you need to tone that stuff down with. They did a very good job of it in the Berman-Stavern fight of just getting him relaxed, getting him focused. But in the Molina fight, I thought he was far too excitable and it turned over into tension. And a lot of that may have been to do with the fact that it was his first fight in front of his home crowd in Alabama and also his first title defense. So maybe there was some extra nerves there. But either way, you could see that he was very tense for that fight. And he needed a calming presence. He needed somebody to calm him down. Now, this fight here against Artur Szpilka, it's a spur of the moment fight. Alexander Povetkin said he wouldn't be ready to face Deontay Wilder in the month of January 2016. So the WBC have allowed Wilder to have another voluntary defense. And Artur Szpilka is the guy. Szpilka is not a bad fighter. I've watched quite a few of his fights. I saw him against Thomas Adamek. I saw him against Bryant Jennings. And I've seen a few of his other fights as well. He's a decent fighter. Southpaw. Stands around, I believe, 6'3". So by modern standards, he's a fairly small heavyweight. 6'3", 6'4", possibly. You know, not exactly the biggest guy in the world. Weighed in, I believe, 233 pounds for this fight. Wilder, I think, weighed in 228, 229. So there's not that much difference between them in terms of body mass. Szpilka has decent power, but nothing spectacular. Decent speed, but nothing spectacular. He's a boxer puncher. He's certainly not exactly slick. He's, you know, he mixes it up a little bit. He boxes here and there, punches here and there. So, yeah, he's a decent, pretty technically sound fighter. His defense isn't amazing. Nothing about him really is amazing, but he's just a good all-round solid fighter. But in the lead up to this fight, Szpilka being Polish and on the East Coast of America, most of you will probably know there is a very, very large Polish population on the East Coast of America, especially in cities like Chicago, also in New Jersey, which is just right over the river from New York City. And this fight is taking place in New York City. And if you saw some of the press conferences leading up to this fight in the weigh-in, you'll notice that the majority of support seemed to be for Szpilka. It was a pro-Szpilka crowd. And we may see that on fight night, an overwhelmingly pro-Szpilka crowd. The Polish really get behind their fighters. We saw that when Fonfara fought Cleverly. Big Polish contingent playing, singing their songs and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be interesting with an excitable character like Deontay Wilder, a guy who's always trying to prove himself. Will that be to his detriment against Artur Szpilka? Will he get overexcited or maybe tense like he was against Molina and allow that to play into Szpilka's hands? That's going to be the question. I personally believe if he boxes as relaxed and disciplined as he boxed against Berman Stavern, I don't think he'll have too many problems with Szpilka. And even if he boxes the way he did against Johan Dupar, which was a fairly disciplined performance, it wasn't too bad from Deontay Wilder. If he boxes like that, I also think that'll be enough to get rid of Artur Szpilka. But if he comes in like he did against Molina, where he was noticeably tense and far too eager to prove and far too worried about his own performance, if he fights like that, there might be problems. Yeah, there could possibly be an issue there if he's that tense and not relaxed enough. We'll see how it goes. So I would have to pick Deontay Wilder to win this fight, possibly by late stoppage. But as I say, given the fact that this is a late replacement, well, not late replacement, but the fight was a last minute fight. Let's put it that way. Last minute fight for both of them. I'm not saying either one of them is not going to be in shape. They're both going to be in shape because they were both training for fights. So conditioning will not be the issue here. The issue, if there is any issue, will be mental. Who can hold it together better mentally in this particular atmosphere, which is likely to be pro-Polish? There's a lot of pressure on Wilder because people are saying he's not a real champion. He was walking around New York City in the past couple of weeks. Nobody recognized him. The American press have been saying to him, does it bother you that you can walk around the, I guess you could say, the unofficial capital of the United States? We all know that Washington, D.C. is the capital, but New York is probably the most famous city in the United States alongside Los Angeles. Can you walk around America's biggest city? You walk around America's biggest city and hardly anyone recognizes you. Doesn't that bother you? These kind of psychological things, could they make Wilder a bit reckless? Because he seems like the kind of guy where it don't take much to push him over the edge because he's so excitable anyway. Let me know how you feel about this fight. Do you see the potential danger if Wilder don't hold it together? Or do you think that regardless of what Wilder's mind state is like, he'll defeat Artur Szpilka regardless? Let me know in the comment section below. It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.